Welcome to year 2 of A Mick, a Mook, and a Mike. Hosted by 4-time Emmy-nominated producer Frank Bates and retired New York City firefighter, 9/11 first responder, and Vietnam vet, Billy O'Connor.
In our salute to 9/11 first responders, we talk with FDNY Deputy Chief Richard Allies and Attorney Michael Barish.
My brother
Frankie, how are you, pal?
How you doing today?
Pretty good. Today's well, it always comes around 9/11. I get a little
Squeamish?
queasy. Yeah, not quite right. And this is our third 9/11 show, which is hard to believe.
Right.
And it's kind of a different slant this time on. We have Deputy Chief Richie Ailes, and Michael Barish from Barish and McGarry, who's the lawyers that have been handling all the compensation cases for firemen from 9/11 and everybody else down there,
Well,
firemen, cops, fireworks.
I'll look forward to
Yeah, it's
speaking to them.
yeah, it's going to be informative. They're going to tell us an awful lot of things we don't know about the World Trade Center health program and the funding and everything else.
But I also get squeamish around this time of the year because it's the start of the NFL season, and that means
that means you're going to watch your partner go into the toilet.
More picks into the toilet by Billy O'Connor.
Listen, Frank, I'm going down for the third time. When you see the hand go up, just reach out,
Well, this should be an interesting year. Baker Mayfield's on the move. Russell Wilson's on the move. We'll see how Tua does. We'll see how the 49ers do without Jimmy G. It should be an interesting season. See if the Buffalo Bills can do what's expected of them. But what's your take on the football season?
Well, you know what? You talk about the Buffalo Bills. Usually, I was always under I always used to bet under the assumption that a team that got to the Super Bowl one year would go back the next year and kick the door in if they didn't win.
Mm-hmm.
So apparently the bookmakers agree with me because I look at the AFC futures, which are the future odds the bookmakers have up, and they got Buffalo Bills favored to win the AFC.
Well, how do you mean?
Well, they got it at plus 325.
Now, what the fuck does that mean?
All right, I'm going to explain.
what the fuck does plus 325 mean?
Everything is based on $100.
Yeah.
So if you bet $100 on the Buffalo Bills to win the AFC Championship right now, they'll pay you $325. So everything's based on 100. So
Okay.
325 to 100. For example, the Kansas City Chiefs are 400 plus 450. So they'll lay you $450 for every 100.
Okay.
So obviously Buffalo is the prohibitive favorite to win the AFC East.
Who else they got?
Well, they got the way they see it is, which that surprises me. They have Kansas City, then the Los Angeles Chargers. So they're the third team. They're plus 700. So if for every 100 you bet, you'll get 700 back.
Wow.
Then they got the Broncos at plus 800.
Where are the Rams?
Oh, we've got to go to the NFC for that.
Oh, well,
There we go. The prohibitive favorites in the NFC to win the Super Bowl, to win the NFC conference is Tampa Bay. Brady's coming back.
Yeah.
If this was social studies, you'd get an A.
If this was social studies, you get an F. Keep going.
350 for 100.
Okay.
So if you bet 100, you get back 350. Up behind them is the Rams, 500. You bet 100, you get 500 back. If you think the Rams are going to win the NFC East.
So to win the Super Bowl, the answer is Buffalo at 320 plus
yes,
320.
Buffalo.
And they think Buffalo's going to play Tampa Bay.
Tampa Bay.
I think Tampa Bay will be lucky to make the playoffs, even though 45-year-old Tom Brady, who everybody thinks is going to be on a Masked Singer, which is ridiculous. Because wow. I'm sure he had a vacation planned with his family for 10 days, and they said, "Well, if you can, I'll come out of retirement if you want, but I'm not going to miss that cruise."
Yeah,
I'm
sure
cruise.
You're not going to miss that cruise. Is right. Yeah, and that could be more strenuous than the Super Bowl, actually.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So the outside shots here, the long shots.
Yeah, who's the worst?
The worst team in the NFC would be the Detroit Lions. They're
Okay.
7,500. You bet 100 right now on the Lions to win the NFC East, you can win $7,500.
Okay, and
wow.
Who's
after that, it's Carolina, 6,000. Atlanta after that, and this surprised me, the Giants.
Let's go to the other conference.
Okay.
So how many people you think, while you're looking for that conference,
got it.
how many people you think are like just dropping 100?
that are
A lot of guys will do that.
Funding that 7,000 for them to pay out.
They'll bet $100 and say, why not? It's $100, and if I win $7 grand. Why not? And you know what's really the way it works usually? If somebody bets 100 on a long shot team like the Dolphins, Miami is $1,400 they give you for every 100 if Miami wins the AFC. So now if Miami does get to the playoff game to win the AFC, well, they can bet $800 the other way and cover their ass, you know?
Yeah.
One way or another, they're going to come out of it ahead.
So where are the Jaguars?
Ooh, good question.
Look toward the bottom.
Oh, yeah, definitely on the bottom. Let's get the right conference here. 1 second. Hang on. Come on. Jaguars. Interesting.
Done.
Break up. How come you never bought?
Jaguars. Down by the bottom, there's 6,600 for a $100 bet. You can get 6,600 back, which surprises me. It's at the same odds as the Jets. The Jets are 6,600 to 100.
They'll beat the Jets.
You think?
Yeah.
And then Houston's the real long shot out. If you bet $100 on Houston, you get back 12,500 for $100.
Wow.
So you were going to ask me something?
I was wondering, how come you never bought a house in Jacksonville?
I didn't want to live there, and my wife would never go there.
Really?
No, okay.
My wife would never.
Really?
Ever.
That's because all the old girlfriends running around? Is that it?
First of all, there are no old girlfriends.
The moms hanging outside the house.
If they were, they would be really old girlfriends.
You mean the wheelchair brigade?
And secondly, that's the last one. After Mississippi, all of those places, you couldn't get my wife to go in a minute.
That's the old joke. You know, you entered a contest, and the first prize was 2 weeks in Mississippi, and the second prize was a house in Mississippi.
I caught you. I hope you cut to yourself laughing there.
I did
because you were pretty funny.
I did.
All right. Well,
so that's the deal with the football, Skinny, my brother.
Okay. So let's get to Rich and Michael. And before we bring Rich and Michael on, Derek, could you roll that clip, please, to give our audience a little bit of preview of what's going on?
Will do.
First responders and civilians still dealing with health problems related to 9/11 could soon be left in medical limbo.
A medical program for survivors is dangerously close to running out of money, and now advocates are sounding the alarm and asking for Congress to step in. Linda Schmidt spoke to advocates and 9/11 survivors about why this funding is so vital. Linda.
That's right there, Stephen Laurie. Well, tonight we are talking about the World Trade Center health program. It is now short $3 billion. And if Congress does not plug that gap, people sick with 9/11 illnesses will be at risk of losing their treatments.
Congress made a promise to the 9/11 community to provide free health care for the rest of their lives. 68 types of cancers have been linked to 9/11, in addition to other illnesses. Now, the health care program has a $3 billion shortfall, and advocates are pleading with Congress to fill the gap. Richard Allies is a retired FDNY deputy chief.
We have countless responders and survivors that are on life-saving medicine without the funds to pay for the prescription coverage. They'll lose that.
The healthcare program is not just for first responders like firefighters and police officers. It covers anyone who lived or worked south of Canal Street on 9/11 and for the year that followed, many of whom do not have health insurance.
There are tens of thousands of people affected by the aftermath of 9/11 who have no insurance and rely on the World Trade Center health program.
Attorney Michael Barish represents thousands of 9/11 survivors suffering with illnesses from breathing the toxic air from Ground Zero. Most first responders have enrolled in the World Trade Center health program, but he says thousands of other people do not even realize they are eligible to enroll.
Less than 10% of the office workers, students, teachers, and residents are enrolled. They were breathing the same toxins. They're coming down with the same illnesses.
And as we have seen for many years now, 9/11 advocates, they are big fighters, they are strong, and they are going to keep pushing Congress. And they are hoping that the government pledges that $3 billion by the end of the year. Lori, back upstairs to you.
All right, Linda, thank you so much.
Derek, can you get Richie Alice and Michael Barish on, please?
Will do.
Hey, guys, how are you?
How you doing,
Great.
Michael?
Thanks for having us.
Hello, Richie.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Thanks very much for coming on. It's my partner, Frank Pace. Richie, I know a ton of people that you know. I mean, I've obviously being an officer on the New York City Fire Department as a lieutenant. Your name popped up so many times, and I don't know how we never met, but you started out in 91 engine, right? So that would be Jimmy McCluskey territory. I guess you know Jimmy.
Absolutely. So he was the senior man, the senior whip in the firehouse when I got there in 1979.
79. Wow. What was I doing in 79? I was trying to find work in a World Football League, I think.
In a World Football League, yeah.
What were you doing in 79, Billy?
Well, 79, I just got on a job.
Make it short.
And,
make it short.
Yeah, make it really short. But Jimmy McCluskey was my first engine officer in a 60 engine. I mean, iron lungs, and God rest his soul. What a tremendous fireman. Real, I mean, Jimmy can eat fire. Just eat fire. You didn't happen to work with Mike Prendergast down there by any chance, did you? The Tinker?
No, but I know Mike Pendergrass, but yeah, we didn't work together. He was already gone.
Oh yeah, the Tinkers we go back a long time. Well, I'm going to start by asking you guys both, Michael, Richie first. Where were you the day it happened, Richie? When did you get down there? I'm not going to ask you if you went down there. Everybody went down there, but when did you go down there?
Well, I started the day behind the 8 ball because I had worked a 24-hour shift the day before. Monday, September 10th, I worked 9 a.m. to 9 a.m. September 11th. And I was in the 5/8 Battalion, which is in Canarsie, a very busy section of the 15th Division in Brooklyn. And the day tour was nothing to speak of, but the night tour happened to be exceptionally busy. Some huge major accident on Bell Parkway. We had a couple of fires that night. It was basically like an all-nighter. So the next morning, I'm sitting in the office, and I'm a news junkie. I got the TV on. I'm in the office, coffee, and doing paperwork from the mess from 1994, fire reports and all. And the events of the day are beginning to unfold. So subconsciously, the initial report being that it was a commuter plane that had that crashed into one of the towers, not something that had never happened before in the city of New York. I wasn't overly concerned, but I just started thinking, thinking as a chief, what would I do if I was working downtown and pulled into this situation as the first battalion chief? That was my rank at the time. So just kind of doing that and listening to things going on. And then, as time progressed, things got worse, and it was much more than that. And that's kind of when the New York City Fire Department instituted a total recall. So I was already there, and on a recall, you go to your division, 9 divisions at the time in the New York City Fire Department, all the mustering sites, and that's where you go. So we proceeded over there, and there was a time, logistics and all, getting tools and equipment and staffing. They brought city buses in, and the 15th Division is in Brownsville. So while we're there, obviously we're in communication with the command post downtown. We know what's going on. We knew the second building had been hit. By the time we were all on, kind of gathering onto the bus, the first tower had collapsed, and we knew, my God, command chiefs were talking to us. We kind of, discussing what the operation was going to be like when we got down there. And then, on the way, the second tower had collapsed. So we got downtown. My day starts basically 20 minutes after the second collapse. In a tired mode, but with the adrenaline and everything, and understanding that, this was my thought at the time, that we were going to embark on the largest search and rescue operation in our nation's history. What would make me think not? There's 2 towers, 110 stories each, and thousands upon thousands of people that were there. I thought it was going to be a day of rescue, and the outcome of that.
Yeah, I don't think. Even being a battalion chief and with your, the experience that you had, I don't think anything can prepare you for your first sight of what happened. Of those 2 collapses. You had no way that could. Your knees might have got weak.
No. The scene that I saw, the only thing that I can equate it to is is the footage that I saw of the London bombings. You know, that's what it looked like, this large area that had been bombed. It was just a sea of debris. It was an eerie kind of quiet, even though there's noise and everything going on, but with the dust and the debris that was in the air, it was like, you know, like when you're in the midst of a snowstorm in the Northeast.
Yeah.
It was like that, only you're looking at a wasteland of devastation. And you're, you know, and I was mentally prepared, knowing this, you know, before getting there, that these two buildings had collapsed. But once you're there and you see it, your mind really can't catch up to what you're visualizing. It's crazy. It really is.
Rich, I believe you probably mind didn't catch up to what you had gone through for 3 or 4 weeks afterwards, because you must have been PTS, you know, post-traumatic stress syndrome.
Well, I mean, yes and no. You know, I mean, you know, the training, you know, really kicked in, and I mean, I'm grateful for the fact that I have the ability to compartmentalize things, and you know, my training by kicking in was really just focused on the task at hand. So, you know, I was there basically for pretty much 24 hours, and then, you know, hit the wall, and then, you know, report back, and then the fire department went to a 24 on, 24 off rotation. So we were rotating, whether you were a firefighter or a command chief, and doing these shifts, and you were either in the firehouse because the city still had to be protected, or you were at ground zero. So I was the youngest chief in my battalion, so I was taking the shifts. So every other day, I was going down and working my 24-hour shift, supervising search and rescue, which really, for the first 10 to 14 days, it's a true search operation. And after that, basically, you have no, you're not going to find anybody that's still alive, and it shifts to a recovery operation, which is really a depressing and a PTSD kind of situation, because you realize that we're not going to find any of our own, and we're not going to find anybody else either. So it's a tough thing to wrap your head around.
Yeah, Michael, let me ask you a question. When did you get involved with Richie, and how did you get involved, and what does your involvement entail now?
So before 9/11, the vast majority of my practice was representing New York City firefighters who were injured in the line of duty. And then, of course, we lost 343 guys that day, and many of them were my clients, but also many of them were witnesses in clients' cases. So this affected my practice deeply, but also because my office is just 2 blocks from ground zero, we had no electricity for a month. So we were, meeting in Chinese restaurants and doing what we could. We were going to firehouses like so many other New Yorkers and bringing lasagna and food and trying to help out that way. But then after a few months, I realized that, wow, these guys are still coughing. Remember they called it the World Trade Center cough, Billy?
Oh, yeah.
And that's what Dr. Brazan called it. And so I ended up filing over 600 notice of claims to protect the rights of New York City firefighters who were still coughing in case that cough turned into asthma or reactive airways disease and didn't go away. And I got crushed by the press. You know, they said, oh, apparently one law firm doesn't mind suing New York City when it's at its worst and suffering its most. But you know what? I'm a New Yorker, and I felt bad. I didn't want to sue New York, but I also had a duty to protect the firefighters who I represented. So I'm on Christmas vacation in Jamaica with my family a few months later, and I meet Ken Feinberg, the special master who had just been appointed by President Bush. And I tell him that I have these notice of claims pending, and he goes, well, you don't want to sue New York City. And I said, no, of course not. But I don't have a choice because your rules said that you had to go see a doctor within 72 hours. Well, trust me, no firefighter or cop was going to stop to go to a doctor because he had a cough when 343 firefighters and 60 cops were missing, let alone thousands of civilians. So Feinberg said, well, let me ask you this. If I change the rules and do away with that 72-hour commitment, would you drop your pending lawsuits against New York City and come to this newly opened victim compensation fund? So that was my introduction to the fund. I ended up representing Jimmy Zadroga, the cop who died of pulmonary fibrosis. They ended up doing an autopsy. They found ground glass in his lungs and asbestos and lead and benzene. And that was the proof doctors needed to link all these cancers and respiratory illnesses. So to answer your question, now the fund, the original victim fund, closed in 2004. And yet people kept getting sick, like Jimmy Zadroga died in 2006. So I start going to Washington to lobby Congress to reopen the victim compensation fund. And who do I meet? I meet Richie Allies, and I meet a lot of the other guys from the UFA and the UFOA and a bunch of the police unions. And it really was a joint effort. And we convinced Congress finally, and I'm pretty sure Jon Stewart deserves a ton of credit for shaming Congress. But we were lucky in that Congress opened the Victim Compensation Fund for 5 years. And I'll let Richie take it from there. Richie, what happened after that? Did people stop getting sick?
Yeah.
No, people did not stop getting sick. So in 2007, I get promoted to I get promoted to deputy chief. I'm running for office in the Uniform Fire Officers Association, and I get elected. The battle in Washington has really, started, like Michael alluded to, with Detective Zadroga passing away in 2006. And I have to give Michael credit here because we had been arguing with the city of New York and the federal government, claiming that this, that, and the other thing was in the air. They said the air was safe to breathe. Michael convinced the Zadroga family to have an autopsy done on Jimmy. Now, an autopsy, very difficult decision for a family to make. We know what that's involved. They just lost a loved one. They're in mourning. And now this kind of, like a desecration of the body. But they agreed. And their agreement is the evidence that we were able to use. And like Michael said, in that autopsy, they found everything, a toxic group, cancer-causing agents. So I get elected to office, going into the deep end of the pool, and there I am in Washington. It still took 4 years, from 2006 of the death of Detective Zadroga to 2010, when we get this historic legislation passed, and he accepted a 5-year deal. Because to do otherwise, the Democrats were in control of the House and the Senate, but they had lost both houses. And we realized that if we didn't accept this deal, we weren't going to get another deal. So we did. And I wasn't overly concerned because the numbers of people that were sick, I knew it was going to continue to explode. So in 5 years later, in 2015, I thought it would be a bunt. Yeah, we struggled to get the law passed in 2010, but 2015 will be a piece of cake. Well, I couldn't have been any more wrong. It was just as difficult starting, I guess, near the end of 2013, to start to advocate and rally to get the law renewed. We were successful. Came down to the remaining days of 2015 to get the law now. Victim Compensation Fund, which is the compensatory side of it, which is very important to the families. They brought the loved one. They have no income coming in. That was extended for 5 years. The health program, which was near and dear to my heart, was I knew that so many of my brothers and sisters who were first responders were coming down with these illnesses and all. And in various departments across the country, they may not have the best of medical care. I wanted to make sure that they receive the health care that they deserve. And the survivors, and I call them the forgotten community, the innocent people, and I hate the term survivor because it sounds like they pulled out of the wreckage of 9/11, but survivors are just everyone else. Survivors are residents, downtown office workers, school teachers, New York Stock Exchange. Don't forget, we opened up the stock exchange a week later. These are people, and they're heroes in their own right. They couldn't go to ground zero and assist the first responders in search and rescue. That's not their venue, but they assisted in helping clean up the stock exchange to get it up and running, and they were successful. What's their reward? Come down with horrendous cancers. And students, and there's 14 schools downtown, and everyone else. So the health program was made permanent, and the Victim Compensation Fund was only extended for another 5 years. That was due to expire in 2020. So I wasn't, again, in 2015, I wasn't worried. I knew the numbers were going to continue, and it's like, okay, it'll be a piece of cake in 2020. And what happened? By 2018, near the end of 2018, early 2019, the fund is running out of money. So we had to scramble and fight, and ultimately were successful in getting the Victim Compensation Fund made permanent to match the health program. So both programs are in effect until 2090. And what I tell people is that, in 2090, when this is expiring, if anyone else is still not covered, then I'm going to be in Washington. I'm going to be fighting as hard as I can to make sure that it gets extended beyond that.
So, Michael, if I understand Richie, both both arms of Congress have approved and funded the programs, correct? Or is there still some?
Yes, I don't want to get caught in the weeds. We do have a little problem now with the health program. The Victim Fund is fully funded and has been permanently extended to 2090. But if you want to get us into this, we will. Richie and I just did an interview on Fox yesterday.
I do.
Yeah, and there's a $3 billion shortfall.
That's where I'm
on
going.
The health program. And listen, and Richie hinted at it. We knew the pH level of this air and toxic dust was the same at Drano. And you remember what Christine Todd Whitman said, don't you, Billy?
Yep, Christine Whitman, go on back to work. Don't let the terrorists win. The air is safe.
The air is safe to breathe.
Yeah.
Special place in hell for Christine.
Without a doubt.
Don't hold back, Richie. So we were all exposed to the same toxins. Richie alluded to the fact that it wasn't just the responders. There were 100,000 first responders, and by first responders, I also mean the responders such as the sanitation workers and the construction workers. Of course, those are just as they're not first responders, but they are most definitely responders. So, of course, they were breathing the toxins, but then so were the 50,000 students and teachers at these 21 schools south of Canal Street. So were the 25,000 downtown residents, and so were the 300,000 office workers. You would get out of the subway to go to your office, and the smell would hit you. And you just couldn't, you'd take it home with you. You just couldn't get it out of your system. Well, not surprisingly, all these non-responders are coming down with the same cancers now that have been linked by NIOSH. They've linked 68 cancers. So I guess it isn't surprising that the health program is running out of money because so many people are getting sick, and sadly, so many people are dying. I mean, I lose 2 clients every single day. Think about that.
2 a day.
Now, I represent about 45% of the 9/11 community. So, I don't know. I'm sure there are other people who are dying, but just haven't connected the dots. And that's what's really, truly heartbreaking, that, we spent so much time in Washington getting this bill passed. And it was a struggle because do you remember a lot of people were saying, another handout for New York City. They don't need it. They don't deserve it. Well, this wasn't an attack on New York City. This was an attack on America.
Yep, America. Yep.
And Washington, of course. Yes.
So what's the status of that $3 billion shortfall?
Richie, you want to take this?
Well, they had it packaged in the Build Back Better bill, which got shut down in Washington, unfortunately. And in a way, when I alluded to the reporter in Fox News, I'm almost glad that it did, because I prefer when bills are standalone.
Absolutely.
Because when you have a bill that's packed in with all these other things, someone can hide and say, you know what? Well, I didn't vote down on 9/11. I was against this, that, and the other thing.
The pork, yes.
Right. So we have a little bit of time. The clock is ticking, and it's estimated that if we don't have this done by October 1st of 2024, then there'll be no new enrollments. Then people that are already in the health program that are getting treatment and getting their prescriptions filled. Now we have thousands of responders and survivors that are on life-saving medicine without the funds to pay for their prescription medication that's keeping them alive.
Jeez.
So if the health program can't supply that to them, they're basically dead people walking. So it's a crisis. We have a little bit of time, and we will be down in Washington, trying to take care of business, and we have midterm elections coming up. So it's so right now, nothing's going to happen until after that, and then I guess we'll be down, boots on the ground and working full time to get this done.
Michael,
I got to tell you, Richie, what I'm just as afraid of as the people losing their health care is we're going to lose a lot of really good 9/11 doctors and nurses and oncologists who are used to treating and have spent their last 20 years learning about these 9/11 illnesses. Now, if you're a doctor or nurse at one of these facilities and you think, oh my God, they're going to lose their funding next year, well, let me tell you something. You're looking for a new job this year. And it would just be shameful if these people left the World Trade Center health program and the national program. The health program, by the way, I hope you guys know this, Frank and Billy, this is a nationwide free health program, because guys not only have moved from New York City to Arizona and LA and Florida, to get out of the cold, but so many responders came from every state in the country. And they are getting this health care that's, it's paid for first by your own private insurance, but whatever your private insurance doesn't pay, the health program picks up all the copays, all the deductibles. If you have no insurance at all, which thousands of people in this country don't have, then the health program pays everything. And you've heard of, haven't you? Chemotherapy can cost tens of thousands of dollars a month. So it's life-saving, as Richie just said.
And the same thing happened in 2015 when it looked like, the bill was going to expire. So we didn't know if the health program was going to get extended, the victim compensation fund was going to get extended. So doctors and nurses were looking around for other opportunities. And if they saw it, they took it, and they left the program. So even though we were successful, it was at the end of 2015. So the health program had to go out and recruit new doctors and new nurses. And we're facing the very, very same issue. It's like Groundhog Day. It's just excruciating.
I can't understand how Congress can let that happen. $3 billion.
And you know what's
$3 billion is like a spit in the bucket to them.
That's right. Frank, I'll also tell you this. It's so infuriating for us to see these politicians every September 11th tweeting out how today we never forget the responders. We pledge to always support them. Yet, when we have a bill to, as you said, a spit in the bucket, I know $3 billion is not exactly a spit in the bucket, but this is an obligation, a moral obligation that our country made to the 9/11 community. They lied to us about the quality of the air. They got us back to work. They got the responders in the pit without proper respiratory protection. They promised they'd give us a lifetime of free health care. And then to pull it, to say we support it, and that they vote against it, that's
and then
the
take
most
a bow.
infuriating.
Take a bow for supporting it.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like Richie says, a standalone bill would go a long way, because you would have to declare
yes or no.
Yes or no. I'm for it or I'm against it. And everybody was against.
That's what we're going for.
Everybody was against it. Will have to reach up and show their true colors, and they would I would bet it would be 98-1 in Senate.
And that's, by the way, that's what it was in 2019. It was 98-1 when we had this standalone, and every politician had to support it.
You know, Michael.
Who was the one, Michael? Who was the one?
Wasn't it Mike Lee or Rand Paul? I can't remember.
Rand Paul, my
He's a
favorite
jewel.
guy.
He's a jewel. He's a jewel. I remember McConnell said one time about Ted Cruz that you could shoot him on the Senate floor and nobody would convict you. Nobody.
Right.
Which is
well,
true.
Cruz, by the way, Cruz voted against this healthcare addition. Hopefully we'll convince him. If we shame him and we get him a standalone vote, hopefully he'll change his mind like he did last time.
Well, you know, Michael, you made a great point there that I really didn't think about. And time is of the urgency here because, like you said, the amount of medical people that have the knowledge, that have the know-how, that have been working on this for 20 years, they don't get the money. They're going to bail. They got to feed their families. They got to support themselves. They got to move on. And Richie, I'm sure you can vouch for it. I mean, and the tragic number you mentioned of 2 a day of your clients dying. I'm not involved in law or in as much as Richie is with the fire department now, but I get calls every day. Pray for this guy, he's not doing good. Bone cancer, lung cancer, eye cancer. What the hell is eye cancer? I never heard of eye cancer.
There are these they have now linked 68 cancers. It's almost every cancer you can think of. And by the way, Richie, why don't you tell the story of, and Richie hates it when I do this, but I'm putting you on the spot, Richie, because you really did save somebody's life. And I think Billy and Frank would like to hear it. Tell us about the time you and I went to speak at a retired firefighter group and what you told them.
Okay. Well, before that, just to continue with where Billy was going, this is in particular for FDNY. It's been a really disastrous year. Of course, this past year, I've had a lot of difficult conversations with brothers that are on their deathbed or with their spouse on the way to losing their husband, or to a widow. Between all of these issues, and I die a little bit each time because, you know, as a first responder, I try to put myself in the seat that it could be me talking to an attorney on the other side of the phone, or my wife talking to an attorney on the other side of the phone, and understanding all of these issues. So now we had 3, and now they're coming in rapid succession. You know, we get a pause for a couple of weeks, and we lose 2 or 3. And, 2 days ago, we just lost an FDNY captain, which puts us at 296 post 9/11. Lost 343 that day. I'm predicting that probably within, 2, maybe 2.5 years, they're going to surpass that 340 number. But so oddly enough, there's 68 cancers that are covered. Basically, almost every cancer is covered because there's a category called rare cancer. That, if someone was in the exposure zone, we rarely, especially with the work that the lawyers in our firm do, we get everyone, covered. If they were in the exposure zone, they have a cancer, we get it done. But skin cancer, oddly enough, is the most common cancer in the 9/11 community. And why? Michael said earlier, the pH of the toxins is the equivalent of Drano. So these fine particles would get on people's bodies and cause basal cell and squamous cell, which are both non-melanoma cancer, and then melanoma cancer. So, we travel the country, Michael and I, and speak to the various groups. It's with the responder community, it's easy to gather a group together. It's frustrating, with the survivor group because these are just individuals, but, we get our message out any way we can, webinars, wherever we get invited, we'll go. We'll talk to a room full of 6 people. If they were, in the community, we will share our time and do whatever we can to get them covered. But anyway, speaking to a group of FDNY members, a battalion chief in the FDNY, and just to show you that, skin cancer, sun exposure, we know that causes skin cancer, but this particular individual, dark-skinned Italian, handsome guy, great shape, marathoner, no issues whatsoever. I hate the guy. He's super handsome. But anyway, we're talking, we're talking about getting a full body skin exam. Because the Victim Compensation Fund compensates for skin cancer. but the World Trade Center Health Program doesn't screen for it. It would be too costly to have a dermatologist on staff at all of these centers of excellence, throughout the country. So we tell everyone you have to get a full body skin exam. Anyway, he luckily develops a rash on his forearm. Decides, you know what? I heard Richie talking about this. Let me go get it checked out. Not knowing what skin cancer was, so he goes, and the rash on his arm was just that, a rash. But the doctor does a full body skin exam while he's there, and he detects a slight discoloration under one of his fingernails. He didn't like it. He went in and did a biopsy. The biopsy came back. Not only was it skin cancer, it was melanoma skin cancer. He had to cut the tip of his finger off. He had to undergo some chemo because the cancer cells, he'd had this for a while, they can find their way into the lymph node system and break out somewhere else. But the end of the story is a good ending. He's alive and well and fine. Had he not developed that rash, he never would have gone to the dermatologist. He didn't even really notice this himself. It was like, a handy guy, like most people in the FDNY. So maybe he banged his hand, or he never would have went, and who knows what the outcome was.
Well, Billy took part in a dig, as you know, and he's constantly going to the skin doctor to have these lesions. And how many have?
Oh, basal cells?
Basal cells.
I don't know. I've had probably about 25 or 30 basal cells cut off. But
wow, you might have the record.
I'm up there. I tell you that. I mean, every time I go in, and my wife is a nurse, and she's a real pain in the ass. I don't care.
Well, you're a Bronx guy, probably caused by fire. You were so close to the fire up there.
My wife, I don't like the looks of this. I don't like the looks. I said, forget it. You ain't a skin doctor. You're a nurse. Stop breaking my chops.
So, Billy, you'll laugh, but Richie's married to a nurse also.
Of course.
And she's all over you, right? She's telling you this. And what if I don't like the looks of this? Well, I don't care what that skin doctor says. Yeah.
So Billy, I want to make this point because it's good that you mentioned this. It doesn't matter how fair your skin is. There is a presumption by the health program, and we'll get to the victim compensation fund in a minute, but there's a presumption that all these cancers, 68 of them, by the way, after the skin cancer is the most common cancer, is prostate cancer, which I have, and it was linked because I'm just 2 blocks from ground zero. I was caught in the dust cloud on 9/11. I went running out of my office building when the first tower fell. And by the time I got to the lobby, that's 18 floors down, the ash and the dust was filling up my lobby. So I'm one of those guys you see covered in dust running north on Broadway, while the real heroes with their sirens blasting like Richie are coming towards the danger. Well, they've now linked these 68 cancers, and it doesn't matter your family history. So it doesn't matter if you smoke cigarettes. It doesn't matter if you spent all your time out at the beach with baby oil all over you. If you have any of these cancers for the rest of your life, it's presumed linked. So you're entitled to the free health care. And another thing that the health program does, which it's not going to be able to do if it closes, is the health program certifies 9/11 illnesses. And why is that important? Because the other part of the legislation is the 9/11 Victim Compensation Fund. And that's this $10 billion fund, fully funded now by Congress. We don't have to worry about it running out of money, but it gives compensation to people. So people with melanoma, like the gentleman who Richie was talking about, he's going to get $250,000. And listen, the health care is much more important than the money, because what does the money do for you if you're not here any longer? But it's nice to know that your family is going to be financially stable. And that's what guys tell me when they call us up and say, I'm terminal. My doctor just told me that my brain cancer or my liver cancer has spread. I don't have much time. We can expedite the case and get him compensation. So at least he knows his family is going to get taken care of. The fund gives, in addition to the $250,000 for most cancers, the fund also will give the family members who lose a loved one an additional $350,000 to $400,000. And if that guy or woman was working, their family's entitled to lost income. How much money that person would have made over the rest of his work life. So it's really Congress did the right thing. I want to give them credit. after the EPA did the wrong thing when they lied to us about the quality of air. But it's so frustrating for us guys that not everybody knows about it, that not everybody is registering. And that's why we appreciate this opportunity to be on your wonderful show and just help spread the word. Tell your friends if they were downtown on or during any of the 8 months after 9/11, they're eligible. And one of the things that we've been doing the last few years is we're telling healthy people that they should sign up because, listen, the federal government's not giving money away unless you were really there. So they want to see proof that you were in the exposure zone. So there's an assumption that every firefighter was there. But a lot of retired firefighters came back, thousands of them. Firefighters from all over the country and cops and construction workers came from all over the country to volunteer. So, but they have to prove that they were there. And every year that goes by, it gets harder and harder to find witnesses to sign affidavits to say, yes, I saw Billy or I saw Richie. So that's why I'm telling people, sign up now, get those affidavits now. We will upload them to the government, and then hopefully we never hear from you again. But don't leave it up to your widow or your family to start the process.
You want to get out front of this thing, just like you did when you first happened. You said, well, we're going to have to file some things here, let people know that if it happens in 5 days or whatever. Two things you said. One, which is really counterintuitive, is that colon cancer was the second biggest, which blows my mind.
No, prostate cancer. Prostate cancer.
I would think of
colon cancer is in the top 10. No, so I'll go through the top 10 with you. But first, it's the skin cancers, then prostate cancer, because there really were so many men. Almost all the responders were men, except for a lot of the EMTs. Then for women, it's breast cancer. Again, doesn't matter the family history. Then it's colon cancer, thyroid cancer, brain cancer, liver cancer. Richie, help me out. What am I missing here?
Breast cancer in men.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, that too. But the blood cancers, multiple
myeloma, thyroid cancer, bladder cancer.
Right. All these cancers are elevated between 9% and 41%, which is considered very medically important statistical data.
How long?
We have young women, 26 and 27 years old, that were students in grammar school in Lower Manhattan that have breast cancer. That's unprecedented. That doesn't happen in the general population.
Once Congress awards a settlement, how long does it take for the recipient to receive the money? And are they ever contested, or is it ever appealed?
Great question. Sometimes when we don't have enough evidence, when we make an application, let's say there's only one witness and they're looking for two witnesses, or they're looking for some proof from an employer that this claimant was there, but the employer is out of business. So sometimes it's hard to find witnesses, and that's why I say it's going to be even harder in 10 and 20 years. Sometimes we get turned down, but then the Victim Compensation Fund is great because they give everybody a chance to testify. Bless you. And if you come across as compelling during a Zoom interview, the hearing officer has the ability to say, you know what, you only have one witness, but I believe you. You gave me enough details in your testimony that I'm going to find you eligible. And they do this all the time. We handle dozens and dozens of appeals. There's no greater feeling than having someone testify and being found credible. This fund is not adversarial at all. The hearing officers really want to help. And in addition, another great thing about the Victim Fund is you never waive your future rights. You know, before 9/11, I used to represent people, let's say they were in a car accident or they were a firefighter injured in the line of duty. Once I settled that guy's case, it was settled forever. They couldn't come back to court years later if the doctor says, all right, let's move, we have to do another surgery. But with the Victim Fund, if you're found eligible for, say, asthma or sinusitis now, and you get an award of, say, $20,000, $25,000, and then a few years later, you have a basal cell cancer, they'll raise your award to $90,000. And then, God forbid, a few years after that, you get prostate cancer, they'll raise your award to $300,000. And then, God forbid, someday you die of cancer, your family's entitled to another $340,000 to $500,000. So You never waive your rights. I don't want anybody to say, "Oh, I only have some sinusitis. I don't want to get involved right now." No, get involved. Secure your proof. Protect yourself. Protect your families.
And how long does it take for the recipient to receive that award?
Well, the whole process usually takes about a year to a year and a half. It's not like a regular lawsuit, which can drag on for 3 or 4 years. And then once they give you an award, you get paid within 2 months. And it's all tax-free, by the way.
That's great.
And, oh, by the way, the legal fees are 10%. It's not like a regular car accident case where lawyers charge a third or 40%. Congress did a really good thing, which I really appreciate. They limited the attorney fees to 10%, and we're not allowed to charge expenses. I don't want to say anything bad about other attorneys, but sometimes attorneys will milk a case and throw in extra expenses. That's not happening. The money goes to the 9/11 community.
Now, let me ask you, Michael, and correct me if I'm wrong. Is it true that less than 10% of the residents of the area have applied for the program? Less than 10%.
This is really frustrating for us. While over 80% of the first responders have enrolled, and that's because their unions have done a great job educating them. Really, they have. Less than 10% of the 300,000 office workers, the 50,000 students and teachers, and the 25,000 residents, downtown residents, less than 10% of them have enrolled. And did I mention the health program is free and the victim funds are tax-free? I mean, there are 2 reasons this is happening, Billy. Either the non-responders aren't getting the word that they are eligible, and that's why, again, I appreciate this opportunity to help us get the word out, or people feel guilty applying. They feel like, oh, I only have sinusitis. I don't want to take money away from sick firefighters and cops. Again, the victim fund is fully funded. You're not taking money from anyone. And the more people who apply to the health program, it helps us get more illnesses diagnosed so that, up until 2012, no cancers had been linked. But thanks to all these people coming forward, we now have 68 cancers, and they're adding new illnesses all the time. So you're doing your fellow 9/11 community members a favor by applying to the health program, and you're protecting your family if you ever get sick.
I'm going
And the federal government doesn't do any public service announcements for the survivor community. Now, the responders, like Michael alluded to, they have unions and the information is out there. They get it, but the survivors don't get it. And also, when we were going to Washington, we would put busloads of sick and dying first responders in their uniform to Washington. And the politicians wanted their pictures with these people. So it was a great tactic. It helped get the law passed. But when we all went home, the perception for the survivor community, which is well over 300,000 people, was that they don't know about the law. And then those that do find out about the law, they believe it's only for first responders. And then, of course, that other portion of it, people that feel guilty, they don't want to file because they feel it was only for responders. But everyone was a victim of misinformation by the EPA, whether you were a responder or you were a survivor.
So, Billy, let me ask Billy a question. Have you enrolled in the program?
Oh, yeah.
You have?
Yeah, I'm enrolled in the program. And I've been to a few of the health, I've been examined and everything else by the World Trade. Yeah, it's a tremendous program. I mean, it's
because you're a mess. You got.
I was going to pull out my red pen, Billy.
You got lesions. You got the GERD. You got.
We got the psychological aspects of my problems, Frank. We don't want to touch on there. But
Billy.
Whenever I talk to an FDNY guy and he tells me he's got PTSD, I say, well, of course you got PTSD. You're a firefighter. If you tell me that you don't have PTSD, I'm worried about it.
Hey, let me ask you a question. Michael, you said you were running north when guys were running south. You would have had to catch up to me running north as well. What gives a guy like Richie, a guy like Billy, the other brothers that you have, the courage to run into a building that's ablaze when everybody else is running away from it?
I answer that question. I get asked that question a lot because we do free wills for all firefighters. We do free wills for all of our clients. And did I say it was free? It is really free. And sometimes I'll ask a guy, what took you so long? This is free. He goes, I don't know. It just always felt like it would be bad luck for me to apply and, to get a will. And besides, I'm really well trained. I'm well trained. Everyone around me is well trained. Nothing's going to happen to me. And that kind of thinking works against common sense, which says being a firefighter is arguably more dangerous than being a lawyer. I know people think my job, I could get a paper cut. I admit it. That's about it. So I take my hat off to I got to tell you, honestly, I'm so lucky to be able to do the work I do as an attorney, because I couldn't do the work that you guys did. And it's a joy for me and, the 175 people in my firm to be able to take care of so many thousands of people. It's a privilege. And it's a responsibility that we take really seriously.
Well, I thank you both, Richie and what's your name, Billy, for the 20 years that he put in and the innumerable great work. And I thank you for your service as well.
Yeah, without a doubt.
And I thank you guys again for helping us spread the word to your community. And maybe they'll spread the word to their friends who say, hey, weren't you working in Lower Manhattan back then?
Yes.
Have you applied to the health program? And by the way, Frank, have you?
No, I was in California then.
Sunny Cal. But
okay.
But let me get back to this before. The basic thing that you want people to know is you're eligible. It's not witchcraft. Get out there, make yourself eligible for the program. It's not going to hasten anything that could happen badly to you. And the residents are eligible. So get out there.
And there are 10 times as many office workers as residents. But get your proof now. Go find that former neighbor. Go find those people that you worked with. I mean, let's be honest. It's tough. And unless you're in the fire department, most people don't keep track or keep in touch with people that they worked with 20 years ago. It's just a fact. So it's hard. We're very lucky, though. We have a huge database of employees at thousands of companies. So if someone says, I can't find someone who worked at the John Smith law firm, maybe we represent someone there who will remember you.
Yeah.
And then he or she can sign an affidavit for you. So, but get it now before those people pass away. Because as I said, as time goes by, we're losing so many people in the 9/11 community. As a matter of fact, twice as many people have now died of 9/11 illnesses than the 2,977 people who died on 9/11.
That's some sorry stat. That's a terrible, terrible stat.
Yep.
Well, I want to thank you, Michael, as well. I mean, I what you've done for the brothers and for everybody down there. We're talking not just the brothers, the policemen, the ironworkers, the residents, the students, everybody. I mean,
I know Billy's often said, without the iron workers, you guys would still be there digging.
Without a doubt. I'm sure Richie can.
That's true.
I call them the mechanical Marines. When they came in the night of September 11th, game changer. And they would stay there the entire time, 9 months.
And what Michael said before is so pertinent, that maybe one of the reasons 80% of the firemen have applied for the program is because we do stick together after the job. 20 years later, it's not unlikely to go skiing. You're playing golf, you're with the brothers. And addressing Frank saying before about guys running into buildings, that's one thing about firemen, Richie, and I know you attest to this. They don't talk about bravery. They don't talk about the jobs. They don't talk about the rescues. They don't talk about this. They talk about how they broke each other's balls in the kitchen. Who did this to this guy? Remember when he did this? And that's what it's about. I often say on this program, you don't take a bow for doing what you're supposed to do. And firemen, that's their job. We run into burning buildings.
Well put. Well put.
Respect of the brothers and sisters you work for is all the compensation and all the reward that you want. Because your reputation in our line of work is everything.
Richie,
Couldn't be more right.
But before we go, or after we go, can you send us your address and Michael's address? Because Billy and I have written a book about 9/11 called Combustible, and we'd like to send you a copy of it. We think.
Thank you, guys.
Awesome.
Yeah, just send it to our office, 11 Park Place,
Terrific.
New York, 10007.
I think you'll enjoy it, Richie. You'll recognize a lot of the faces in there, I'm sure. A lot of the personalities, for sure. It's it was the real deal. It was based on my 20 years there. And
Billy, who's gonna play you in the movie?
Some mook.
Jack McGee.
Jack McGee. We just had Jack McGee on as an old Bronx guy, a fireman, 89 and 50. I don't know if you know Jack, Richie. But we
and as well as Michael know, let me tell you, where Billy worked, that place is the real deal. It was like a really busy shop. And you know the difference between the busy shops and slow shop. That's where you want to be. He was in a real.
And that's where, just like you with 91 Engine, a lot of screwballs came out of there, including Wild Bill Cola. But listen, you two guys.
I can tell you a couple of Wild Bill Cola stories.
Well, I went to the Caribbean with him twice, so I can tell you a couple too. So believe me. But and you know what? When the guy earns the name Wild Bill, and as many bills as on our job, you got to earn it.
You got to earn it. Yep.
Michael, what was that zip code?
That's 10007, 11 Park Place, New York, New York. 10007.
Great.
And thanks, guys. That's so nice. I promise I'll read it and send you my comments, okay?
Right.
If you don't mind, I'll put it on my website, too.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Who's better than you? You know the answer to that. And listen, thanks again, man, for coming on. And for all the...
Thank you, guys.
Really, you guys out
really
there.
Great.
You guys
This is the real deal.
Great.
Take care, gentlemen.
All right,
Thank
buddy.
you very
Thank you
much.
so much.
Take care, guys.
Stay safe.
Good night.
Richie, stay safe,
Bye-bye.
my brother.
You too. Thank you,
Thank
bro.
you.
So,
Great. There was a lot of really good information on that. And what's really telling, I mean, for all the people that aren't firemen and cops out there that in that resident, just around that area, this program's for you as well. And there's no reason why you don't avail yourself of it.
absolutely.
You can bet if Congressmen were available for it, they'd be signing up quick enough.
Oh, yeah. For sure.
You could bet on that. They would be saying, I don't know. I don't feel good about double dipping because I'm already a congressman.
Yeah, because I'm already quadruple dipping as it is.
I already got my left hand in the pile. I might as well, let me see if I can get more out of that.
Quadruple dripping would be you.
No, quadruple drip would be me. I'd be a quadruple drip, not dripping. But yeah, that was very, very informative. I'm glad these two guys come on. And this was our third 9/11 show.
Yeah. Can you imagine that?
No, I can't. And I mean, the first program we had on Cujo and Frankie Chicklets, and they were ground pounders at the scene. Of course, Richie Picciano, first man down, the second one. And now this. And this was a different slant.
Yeah.
Now we're not looking at the horrors we've talked about so many times.
Right.
The smells. And when Richie mentioned the smell, I think Michael mentioned the smell from 3 blocks away.
Yeah.
And I can tell you from being down there, we have a euphemism on our job called a roast, because when you smell burnt flesh for the first time, and it's inevitable if you're on a job in a busy shop, you're going to smell burnt flesh. You're going to get what we call a roast, euphemistically, because you don't want to associate it with what the human body's really like.
No, you want to associate it with food that we eat every day. Okay, fine.
We want to make it as distant from what I can tell you a quick story, but I will tell you a quick story later. But the thing was, the smell down there, and believe me when I tell you, when you smell burnt flesh, it's hard to believe that man is the highest order of things. You really can't believe it because it's terrible. But the smell down there was worse, and he smelled it from 3 blocks away. It smelled like foul chicken because it was rotting flesh.
Yeah.
After a couple of weeks, the sun was baking it, and it was really, really bad.
Speaking of a happier. Let me get back to what we were talking about before we brought Richie and Michael on. The football season is opening Sunday. Why don't you go back to your pick for this week, the first pick?
My pick of the week. I think I was going. Atlanta is. Let me see if I got the. Atlanta's a 6-point underdog to the Saints at home. I don't think the Saints are that much this year. I'm going to take Atlanta at home.
Really?
+6.
Okay. Now again, Derek picks one for me because you're a very learned guy.
Yeah, I'm learning.
As we discussed at the opening of the show. But Derek, do you have one for me?
Yeah, we got Philadelphia against the Detroit Lions.
Where are they playing? Doesn't make any difference.
Yeah,
how many points?
Philadelphia -3, -3.5.
They must be playing in Detroit.
They're playing in Detroit. Yeah.
You know what? I'm going to go with,
Boom.
I've been watching, what the hell's that show on HBO? Hard Knocks. So I really like the Lions, but not enough to take them. I'm going to take Philadelphia and give 3.
You bet with the mind and not the heart, huh?
Well, you never know, because I hope Detroit wins by, well, I guess if Detroit couldn't win, and I couldn't get paid, could I?
Well, as long as they cover, you don't care if they win or not.
Yeah. Okay.
As long as you get plus 4 points, you cover, you're good.
Plus 3, I'll take Philadelphia. With that,
that was a hell of a segue from 9/11 to the football, but by the same token, that was a really informative show.
It was an informative show, but
really
it shows that life goes on.
Yes, it does.
And you have to keep living it. So you keep living it in your losing picks.
Keep living it my misery. Is that it? But everybody out there, stay healthy and
stay healthy.
Do everything you can to stay healthy. And if that involves joining a program that's available to you, for God's sake, take it.
My friend Don Rickles used to say, if you have your health and you're surrounded by people who love you, you have everything in life you're entitled to.
That's fair enough. So 1 out of 2 ain't bad. I have my health. And you two hubs.
All right. Say good night, Billy.
Good night, Billy, and good night,
Good night, Derek.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night, gentlemen.
Thanks very much. Thanks for tuning in, fellas. People, ladies, gentlemen.
Next week's guest, perhaps the greatest special teams player in NFL history, Hank Bauer.